What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Gamecite Chronicles, the console gaming podcast where we sit down each and every week to talk about video games. I'm your host, Bonfire, and this is episode number 18. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in last week, as we just reached, I think, almost 130 downloads now, so we seem to be getting more consistent, which is awesome, and I have you guys to thank for that, so thank you for that. And I hope you guys had a good week. Got some games in. And to those of you that are dads or fathers out there, happy Father's Day. I myself am a dad, so this day actually has a meaning to me now because I never grew up with a dad, but I am one now, which is probably one of the coolest things in my life, to be honest. So happy Father's Day to those of you out there. I hope you guys had a good one. Since this episode will go live after Father's Day, I hope it was a good one. You got to spend some time with the fam, maybe do something fun, go out to eat, do something awesome. Like I would actually love to go play golf, since I'm recording this a day ahead. So this Saturday before Father's Day. So I would actually love to play golf. I don't think we're going to do that, but the day this podcast is live, I'm actually going to go out and do that as well. But nonetheless, happy Father's Day. For me, I'm doing pretty good. Had a good time on vacation. So the last episode I recorded a little bit early, and it's weird because I haven't actually sat down in front of the microphone in what feels like forever, but it really was like a week and a half. But it was good. I had a good time. We went down and got out of town for a couple days. I got some golfing in, which was great. And I actually had like one of the best rounds of my life, which is awesome. Like I actually had a birdie, I had a couple pars in there, which for me is pretty good. So I was super stoked on that. And we had a lot of fun. So it was good to get out of town, and work was pretty good this week, and I got some gaming in. So all around, I think I'm doing pretty well, I would say. Now, I also got to say, it's been absolutely bonkers this past like week and a half with all the news, all the showcases, all the streams, so many trades, like everything. It's just nuts. I mean, E3 might as well be here. You know what I mean? It's just been so crazy. And we're going to dive into some of that. Get into that momentarily. We're going to mostly be focusing on the Xbox Showcase, but we'll dive into some of the news here and go through that. I will say right up front, I know Capcom did a stream this past week, as well as Square Enix did a Final Fantasy Celebration stream. I think that's what it was. So some announcements there that are pretty damn exciting. I'm not going to cover that. I don't want to dive into that this week. Maybe I'll cover something of that next week, more on the Final Fantasy side. But I will say, hell yeah to the Resident Evil 8 DLC. It exists. It's finally here. I think it's coming out October of this year, which I'm so looking forward to that. I love Resident Evil 8. One of my favorite games, probably my game of the year actually of 2021. So I'm looking forward to going back to that. And Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, that's awesome. That's coming. I never played that game on PSP, so it's cool to have that on modern consoles. So exciting stuff coming later this year. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a console gaming podcast. We're going to be talking some video games. And if you're new here, the best way you can support the show is to drop a comment if you're watching here on YouTube, or leave us a rating on the podcast platform you're consuming. Helps us out with the algorithms, makes it more findable if people are searching for podcasts to listen to, and it is very much appreciated. Also, don't forget to check us out on Locals. That's where I follow the page as soon as I kind of start to build a community over there. I want to do some fun things. And the Locals is a really cool platform, a nice alternative platform for content creators. So the Gamecite Chronicles.locals.com is where you can go. As I mentioned too, YouTube, I do have a YouTube channel. Haven't made a video in about 2 weeks here outside of the podcast, but I'll be getting back into my shorts game here. So if that interests you, be sure to head over there, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter at Gamecite Podcast. And remember, new episodes of the show go live each and every week, Mondays at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, for this week's show, as I mentioned at the top, I want to dive in and talk about the Xbox Showcase. I want to review it, walk through each of the games that were shown off, and share my thoughts and kind of rate the show, I guess, if you will. Not a literal rating, but just kind of share my thoughts on how I think Xbox did overall. As well as, I want to discuss a couple of highlights that really appealed to me from the Summer Game Fest. I didn't watch the Summer Game Fest. I just kind of caught some news as it was coming and watched a few of the trailers. So I got a few things I want to touch on about that. So exciting stuff indeed. Now, before we get into that though, let's talk about the games that we're playing, huh? Remember, let me know what games you've been playing. So please write into the show, either hit me up on Twitter, leave a comment on YouTube, whichever. Let me know what games you've been playing, because I find it fascinating, the crazy amount of games that people are playing, or just what people are really into right now. It's really, really cool. So hit me up with that. For me, I finally beat Kingdoms of Amalur: Re-Reckoning. Finally, I finally beat this game. I ended up at around, I think, 75-ish hours for my total playthrough. And towards the end, like the last two kind of areas that you go to through the main quest, I didn't really do any of the side quests. I was like, I can't. There were plenty available and some areas I probably could have explored, but I'm just like, I can't. I kind of reached a point in this game where I was like, I got to finish this game. Like, I don't know. Have you ever reached that point just where like you just have to see the game through and you just kind of want to just finish it, get it off the plate because you're ready to move on to something else? I don't know. I don't know if any of you are like that, but that's kind of how I was and how I am with this game. So finished it, plowed through the rest of the main story. I got to say, I don't really understand the entirety of the story, and it doesn't help that I took 5 months off from this game between my first 50 hours and my last 25 hours. So that certainly doesn't help. But I got to say, the final moments were pretty cool. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I thought the final moments were pretty cool. I liked how it ended. And I really enjoyed it. I think it's a great RPG. I think it's really, really good. And especially if in the context of when it came out in 2012, I believe it was. Yeah, this is a fantastic game. And kind of, I think in a lot of ways, went under the radar. And I'd like to come back and revisit it down the road just to play through the DLCs, like the two DLC expansions that they had shortly after the game was originally released. And then just recently, I want to say within, I think it was fall of last year, or winter of last year, they released brand new DLC expansion. I think Fate Sworn is what it's called. I'd love to play through those at some point, but it's going to be a while before I come back to this game. So Kingdoms of Amalur: Re-Reckoning, you have been completed. Whew, and it was a long one. Now, after that, though, I was kind of looking for a new game to play, and I mentioned it in last week's episode. I was kind of toggling between a couple of games. And then I remembered I have Game Pass. I was kind of perusing through there, and there was one game I was like, maybe this will kind of be a nice palate cleanser. I've been thinking about playing this one for a while. And that's Aliens Fireteam Elite. And the reason why I felt like this one would be a nice palate cleanser, because I don't have to think. It's just kind of a mindless game. At least that's how I perceived it. I just go in, I can go shoot some aliens, and call it a day. And so I started the game through Xbox via Game Pass. I played about an hour and a half-ish of it. Mainly, I just played through the first, I think, 2 main story missions. And I can say that it's definitely just that. I mean, it's just kind of this mindless third-person shooter that you could do with your friends. And I was playing solo, so I played with 2 AI teammates. And I gotta say, the AI, not that bad. I mean, they were helpful, and they got some kills and all that stuff. So they did a nice job there. I'll give them kudos there. But this game is probably definitely better with friends. I can imagine, like, if you just got a nice squad, you guys are just kind of shooting the shit or whatever, just want to go shoot some aliens, definitely would be a fun game to kind of jump into. And so you can level up your character, you can unlock weapons, all that type of stuff in terms of replaying the game and kind of these styles of games, I guess. But I don't know, after those 2 levels, I was kind of like, I'm just not really feeling this. Like, it's not really tackling or scratching that itch that I thought I had. And so I did move away from it. But I do want to give them one credit, though, because I thought this was very well done. That's the sound design. Because the guns, like you're shooting your machine gun, and from what I remember of the movies, it sounds exactly just like that. So I want to give them credit there. I think they did a nice job there. Also, they I could see them trying to kind of have some jump scares as you're kind of navigating some of the early parts of the game, because you're going through these dark corridors, and then like steam will kind of just pop up out of nowhere. So not that this is a scary game by any means, but you can kind of see from like an environmental standpoint, trying to set the atmosphere of being alone in this, I think facility or spaceship, I can't remember, in kind of going on your mission, that type of thing. Kudos to them. So I don't know if I'll ever come back to it. It definitely feels like a AA style game. Not that that's a bad thing by any means, but I don't know. I wasn't really feeling it right now. So then I was on my Xbox and I saw a message from Microsoft. They deposited $5 in my account. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I was like, maybe there's like a game on sale or something that I've been having my eye on that I can go get now. It's not going to cost me anything. So I was perusing the store and I came across Assassin's Creed Origins Season Pass. And that was on sale from $40 all the way down to $12. And I was like, maybe that would be fun to play. Because I know with the modern Assassin's Creed games, the expansions that they've done are actually pretty good. And I remember the Origins one being pretty good. I think a lot of people liked it. I think the Odyssey ones are more favorable and even bigger. I think there was the Atlantis one, and there's one other one that I've heard are very, very good. And so I was kind of toying with that. And I looked at my account balance, because I know Microsoft kind of does this frequently. So check your account balance. Maybe you missed the message and you have some money sitting in your account. But I checked my account balance and I had actually $10. So Microsoft gave me $10 over I don't know what period of time. And so I was like, I could buy this season pass. I've been thinking about jumping into this game because now they have the 60 FPS update. I loved this game. Maybe I'll get it. It'd be $2. And I can go play the DLC. So I did. I picked it up for $2. So thanks Xbox, thanks Microsoft for the free money. So I downloaded the season pass and I started up the first DLC. So it's the hidden ones. And that's what I started. So I booted up Assassin's Creed Origins, the Hidden Ones DLC. And I was actually looking at my game clock because it had been years since I played this game. And I actually put in, I think it was approximately about 46 hours into the original game when I beat it. And since from the DLC this past week, I've played about 7-ish more hours into it. And I played a few of the side quests when I jumped back into the game, just kind of refamiliarize myself. I mean, you guys know that. If you haven't played a game for a while and you're coming back to it, you kind of want to ease your way back into it, relearn the controls, how it feels, etc. So did that, and then I hopped into the DLC area. And so this DLC, the first one, takes place 4 years after the game's main events. And from what I've gathered thus far, you're kind of helping this group because you kind of go across the Red Sea to this other area. And you're helping this group of assassins that you've started, right? Because that's what Origins is about, is you kind of starting the Brotherhood. And so you're helping them kind of just take out targets and kind of free their land of the bad guys, essentially. So there's not really much of a narrative, though, in this DLC that, from what I've gathered thus far, which is kind of a bummer, in my opinion, but because it kind of, like, you go there, you go to the headquarters, you talk to a dude, and then, like, a couple missions pop up, and then there's some side quests and stuff you can do, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm doing these side missions, doing some missions, and I'm like, I don't really feel like there's some cohesion here between the missions, but either way, it's still fun. I'm enjoying my time with it. And one thing I did do that was pretty cool in there is I went on this treasure hunting quest, and you kind of go, you're following these guys' letters as he goes to these different spots, talking about his treasure and some of the things. And so you're kind of going from spot to spot, takes you all over the land, and eventually you find, his treasure, which is pretty cool. I actually really enjoyed that one. It was just kind of fun to treasure hunting. It's kind of cool there. But this game is still great. I still really enjoy this game a lot, and it's been fun kind of going back into it. Egypt is such a great area to explore, to be in, and immerse yourself in. It's so awesome. Tomb raiding is so fun. The combat is still pretty good. I enjoy it. Took me a little bit to kind of get back into that, but it's fun. And I gotta say, it runs well on the Series X. I'm pretty sure I'm playing the. I don't know if I can't really tell if I'm playing the update. Like there's no indicator, but I'm pretty sure that I am because it does run pretty smooth, and I'm having fun with it, man. I'm enjoying my time with it. So I've actually probably after I record this podcast, I'm going to jump back into it for a little bit, assuming I get some free time. So yeah, that's what I've been playing. Now, a game that I think I've talked about before, TMNT Shredder's Revenge just came out this week, and I really want to jump into that. That's kind of been, I actually have it ready to go because this game looks fucking awesome. Like if you're a fan or know of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon from like the mid 90s, I think it was, this is the same aesthetic, everything. And this is basically that cartoon and a spiritual successor to all the TMNT beat 'em ups, the arcade games like Turtles in Time, that type of stuff. It looks amazing. I cannot wait to jump in. Everything I've seen of it just looks awesome. Amazing artwork, etc. And I gotta say one thing though. I kind of struggled on whether or not to purchase this game because it is available on Game Pass. And so I'm like, I want to support the devs. And I would prefer to play on PlayStation, but I have Game Pass and it's there and I don't have to pay for it. So I'm in a conundrum. That's kind of what I struggled with. I'm going to play it through Game Pass. Don't need to pay for it right now. It's there available for me. But I do still kind of want to buy the physical game. So I think that's the route I'm going to go. I'll pick up the physical version, probably on PlayStation, and play it on Game Pass. And this is we've talked about it a little bit with Game Pass, but this is the conundrum, right? That they're again in a way training us not to buy games. Now, does me playing on Game Pass help the developer? I don't know. Some people seem to think so. But I also think it goes back to however the financial deal works out. Is it a lump sum of money? Then if so, then no, it doesn't matter if I play it on Game Pass. The devs got their money. It'd be better if I went and bought it on PlayStation. But if it's on a per player basis, maybe there's some sort of incentive for that, then yeah. Then it does help them. So I don't know. It's a weird time in video games and kind of just a personal conundrum I experienced, but I'm very much looking forward to it. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. So let's get into the Summer Game Fest. Let's start with that. Because there's a couple of games that I pulled from it that I wanted to talk about because I think they look cool and got me really excited. Now, first on my list is Callisto Protocol. They finally showed off gameplay. It was about 2.5 minutes long. They showed this trailer. And it's exactly what I want. It's more Dead Space. It's very Dead Space. I loved it. It just makes me so happy. Because I really, really do love Dead Space. And this game is everything but the name. You know what I mean? So like you can dismember limbs, you say show that. It's got that haunting atmosphere, very dark as you're kind of going through, I think you're in some sort of facility. There's little almost like jump scare moments. There's a sense of discovery, very good atmosphere and environmental kind of setting and feeling with it. It's very eerie. I love it. And the other thing, they showed off some really brutal deaths. Like that was kind of a staple in the original Dead Space. Like you get dismembered or you get like eaten by monsters or aliens and, just all that stuff, like really brutal deaths. There's a couple brutal deaths in that trailer. And it looks like you also have abilities too, because in the trailer, there's this alien that's kind of approaching you and he does this like almost telekinesis thing where he like pulls it in to him and then throws it into this like vent that's spinning and it just gets chopped up. It's just so good. So freaking good. I cannot wait for this game. This is definitely one of my most anticipated games for the rest of the year. It's climbing up the list. Pretty darn close to number one. And I don't, just thinking off the top of my head, I don't really know what a number one would be, but this probably would be number one. It's just, I really hope it doesn't get delayed because beginning of December, I'm going to be playing this game And it's going to be everything. I think it's going to be everything I want it to be from what I've seen, which is more Dead Space. And I don't think it gets much better than that in terms of survival horror. Now, another big announcement from the Summer Games Fest is the official reveal of The Last of Us Part 1. So this is The Last of Us remake. And I talked about this a little bit. I dedicated a big portion of a podcast episode about it. So if you listen to that, you know how I feel. But it's finally official. And this is built for the PlayStation 5, I guess from the ground up for the PlayStation 5 is the lingo. And it's coming out September 2nd of this year, which is fairly soon, actually. And it's also coming to PC a later date, which I think is kind of crazy, but it's really awesome for the fans. And then let's not be surprised when The Last of Us Part 2 then goes to PC within the next, I would say, probably 2 years. So actually probably next year, now that I think about it. So that's pretty exciting. I got to say it's pretty exciting for those of you that haven't played what I think is probably one of the greatest games ever created. It's amazing. I love this game. But they showed off some screenshots. That there is a trailer. I think it's like a 1.5-minute long trailer, which is basically, I believe it's a recut from the remastered trailer, but with the PS5 version. And I got to say that it does look really good. And they show off comparisons between the old version and the new version, like the remastered version and this remake version. And while I think Ellie does look a little weird, yeah, like Joel looks incredible. Like they all look really incredible. The details, the environment, the character models just look spectacular. There is one floating around, I think, of Tess where she looks like a lot younger, which is kind of weird. But maybe it's just a bad screenshot or something. I don't know, but it does look very, very good. Very beautiful. Everything's redone. And from what I can tell, it's a faithful remake, which is good. That's exactly what I wanted. I said, if this game is going to come out, which I do believe it is, and now it is, then it has to be a faithful remake. And from what I can see and tell, it's going to be just that, which is awesome. Now, I am a little bummed there isn't the factions multiplayer. That was one of the things I wanted in this remake, the original Last of Us 1 multiplayer. So bummed that that's not going to be in there. But it does have the Left Behind DLC, which is Ellie's DLC, which is really great. And really adds context to her character, especially going into part 2. So that's awesome. And, I'm such a sucker for this game because I truly do love it. And it's one of the best games I've ever played. Then I'm going to pick it up. I mean, as much as I don't want the remake, as much as I don't think the remake needs to happen, I'm going to pick up the game, and yes, I'll play through it again. So that is what it is, but I think it looks gorgeous, and going through the story will be fun again. Refamiliarize myself. And yeah. So it's happening. Last of Us Part 1 coming out. And yeah, it's $70. So to our conversation last week about game price, go complain about it, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? So they also Neil Druckmann also came out, talked about the Last of Us 2 multiplayer factions, and mentioned that is launching as a standalone game. I think it's coming out sometime next year. Big surprise. And that also explains why the Last of Us multiplayer isn't in there, because all those resources are focused on that standalone factions game. So some good stuff for the Last of Us fans out there. Now, another game they showed off about a 1.5-minute trailer for is called The Last Faith. And this is hailed as a 2D Bloodborne, which that's all I need to hear, my friend. That's all I need to hear. You sold me. 2D Bloodborne, sold. Buying it day one. Hell yeah. So this trailer looks freaking awesome. It's got very cool pixel graphics. Has an almost Castlevania-like atmosphere with this kind of Victorian theme. Very dark, rainy, crazy monsters. And there's guns, just like Bloodborne. Guns. You can shoot guns. Some cool finishes, like when you're killing the enemies, which I think is pretty cool. Has some platforming. It looks like there's some really challenging and amazing bosses in this game. Like some of the bosses they show off in the trailer are just crazy cool. And lots of gore And this game comes out just the window of 2022. So sometime this year, I'd expect it more towards probably the last quarter of the year when they give those release windows. But yeah, I mean, this looks awesome. It looks really, really good. And I don't know if it's going to have those traditional Souls-like mechanics in terms of kind of your resting places, getting, some sort of Souls-like currency to level up your character and kind of build different characters and stuff like that. I don't know if that's really there because I don't know. I couldn't really tell from the gameplay. But it reminds me a lot of Death Gambit, which did have those types of mechanics. So yeah, I'm absolutely sold on this. I'm going to be picking it up. I really hope we get a release date soon, just because I'm excited for it. So I just want to know, okay, where in all of the amount of games that are coming out the rest of these, where is this one going to fit in? Because I really do want to play it. So if you have it, if you like Bloodborne or you like Soulsborne games, check this one out. It's called The Last Faith. And the last game from the Summer's Game Fest that kind of stood out to me that I wanted to touch on is Layers of Fears. And this is by Bloober Team. This is a successor to their Layers of Fear franchise. And it's a psychological and psychedelic, which I didn't realize psychedelic was in there. It's so it's one of those games. And the story is said to be, because I think the other games focus just on one main protagonist. This is going to focus on multiple characters over generations. So kind of, I think, a generational family is where it's going to focus on. Now, I haven't played any of these games. I haven't played the Layers of Fear games. I've been wanting to play the first game for years because I thought it looked really cool, looked right up my alley. And I'm pretty sure I have it on at least Xbox or PlayStation because I'm pretty sure it was given away as PlayStation Plus or Games with Gold. So I'm pretty sure I got it. I do want to play it. I still want to play it because it looks cool and I think I will enjoy it. But I've just never got around to it. So I don't really have that context to kind of compare it with this game. It does look very similar, looks, on par with the other ones. Though I've heard the second isn't that great. So I don't know, but I'm going to keep my eye on this one and hopefully find some time to play the first one. So Layers of Fears. And if I recall, I don't think they gave us a release date or window. So sometime in the future, maybe. All right. And now let's dive into that Xbox Showcase. Now, I want to preface this with a couple things. I actually just watched the Showcase this morning, all the way through for the first time. So it's pretty fresh. But I was caught up in the announcements. So as I mentioned, I was out of town when the Showcase happened, didn't have time to watch it. Though I did see kind of what games were being shown and some of the announcements, some screenshots and stuff like that. So I kind of knew what was going to be shown going into actually watching the Showcase. So I wasn't surprised in a degree in that kind of sense. But nonetheless, I wanted to sit and watch it, take some notes, and all that stuff. So we'll go through kind of each of the games they showed. I'll share some of my thoughts on them. And then at the end, there's a couple of different, I want to talk about the overall show and a couple of tidbits that I want to pull from it as well. So let's dive in. So the Showcase was focused on games planned for release over the next 12 months. So all these games have a target release date within the next 12 months. So that's the big preface at the Showcase. And I think they said they showed more than 30 titles in the show, which is pretty crazy, pretty impressive. And they opened it with Redfall from Arcane. Finally showed off some gameplay, and we got to see vampire cultist enemies and kind of some of the combat, some of the area in the town that you'll traverse and go through. One thing that stood out to me as I'm watching this is the dialogue is a little cringy. I kind of got Forspoken vibes from the character. It wasn't as cringy as Forspoken, but it was just kind of a little, generic, trying to be hip and cool, but you're actually just kind of generic and I can't stand it type of thing. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe I'm the only one that felt that way, but I don't know. The dialogue from the main character they were showing off did not resonate with me whatsoever. And not to get too far into this, but I don't know, why do they keep making these seemingly generic tokenized characters? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe those are the vibes I got. And maybe these characters will be super cool and we get some awesome backstory. That would be fantastic. But I'll leave it there. I digress. So they walk through kind of each character that you can play as, and each character has their own kind of unique set of abilities. And you can kind of sneak or go loud through as you kind of go through the various levels. I'm assuming they're levels. I don't know. But you can also play by yourself or cooperatively, level up your character, all that stuff. All that stuff. The one thing I walk away from the trailer is like, how is this game structured? Like, is this kind of level, or like maybe like Left 4 Dead style where you kind of go level to level to level? Or is it maybe kind of this map to where you can kind of pick and choose your levels that you want to play through and rid the town of these vampire creatures? I don't know. Or is it open world? And you can kind of just go, I don't know. I don't think it's open world. I would assume it's not, but I'm really curious how the game is going to be structured and what kind of that, almost level to level gameplay looks like. How do you go from one scenario to the next within this game? That's not really clear to me. And if you know, write in. I'd love to hear from you. And they ended it with coming 2023. So sometime between January and June, presumably in 2023. Now, I gotta say that overall with Redfall, I think it looks fun. I like Arcane games. I gotta say, I like Arcane games. I love Dishonored. I love that franchise. I think those games are awesome. Prey was good. Deathloop I thought was great. Took me a while to kind of get used to it, but I really enjoyed my time with Deathloop. Thought it was fun. So I like what Arcane does. So I might dive into Redfall when it comes out. And I actually think the saving grace for it is that you can play through this game solo. So I can see myself playing this game and enjoying it. But again, it just comes back to, I don't know, there's something about this game that kind of just doesn't feel right to me. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, because it feels like this game is more designed to be a cooperative, almost Back 4 Blood, Left 4 Dead style of game. Those are kind of the vibes I'm getting, which those games are meant to be replayed over and over and over again to kind of level up your character and have some fun and all that type of stuff. I don't know if that game is kind of in that model, almost bleeding into the live service area, or if this game is more meant to be kind of a standalone, its own type of experience to where you can play it by yourself or with friends. I'm hoping it's the latter, but there's something, I got this feeling that it's going to be the former, and that's kind of my hesitancy, I guess, towards this game. Now, after that one was a surprising game that they showed off that we haven't seen in a long time, Silksong. Now, this is typically what Nintendo fans have been waiting for. And it's actually fun. I saw someone tweet that they're curious on if like Nintendo Direct's viewership or Indie World viewerships will go down now that we finally have seen Silksong after it's been so long since we've seen anything on this game. But that's not here nor there. So it's just a small gameplay trailer that they showed off, and it looks as awesome and difficult as you'd expect. And if you've played Hollow Knight, you know what I'm talking about. It's everything you'd want, right? Except now you're playing with the Silksong character, which is awesome. So new abilities, different style of combat and navigation through the levels and all that. I love it. I absolutely love it. I cannot wait for this game. And this game is coming to Game Pass, which is really exciting. I'll probably play it elsewhere. I got to be honest. I played the original Hollow Knight on my Switch, and so I will probably play Silksong on my Switch. I don't know. It just feels like the home for it, if you know what I mean. But I think that's a really exciting announcement that I don't think a lot of people saw coming at the show. And if you haven't played Hollow Knight, oh my goodness, play that game. It's awesome. Now, if you don't like difficult games, or you don't like kind of Metroidvania style games fused with a little bit of the Soulsborne formula in there, then you may not like it, but it's still a really fantastic game. After that, they showed a game called High on Life, and this is a console launch exclusive, obviously coming to Game Pass. And I don't know what to make of this game. It's like a first-person shooter style game, but like your guns are all like these weird creatures that talk to you, and like you're just taking down these weird monsters. And I don't know. I really, honestly, do not know what to make of this game. And also, if I remember correctly, it's made by the creators of Rick and Morty, so it's going to be out there a little weird, which makes sense in that context. But I don't know. This game is really, really weird. A little too weird for me. But this one is coming out October 2022. So no official date, but sometime in October of 2022. And then after that is another big announcement I don't think anyone saw coming. And that is a partnership with Riot Games. So their biggest games are all coming to Game Pass on both console and PC, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. So League of Legends is making its way to consoles. I think that's a first. And League of Legends Wild Rift, which I'm assuming is an expansion. I don't know. I know nothing about League of Legends. I do not understand it. Again, this is a console gaming podcast. This has not been on consoles until this will happen. So bear with me. Legends of Runeterra is also coming. Valorant, which is pretty popular on PC, that's also coming. And Teamfight Tactics is coming. And all these games come with all the champions on Game Pass, which is like, I think, a huge value for people who want to jump into that. Because I think that a lot of those characters are like paid, or you got to earn them, all that stuff. So you get them all right out of the gate on Game Pass. And so I think this is huge. I have to imagine they spent a lot of money on this. Xbox did. But just the fact that these really PC-centric games are coming over to Game Pass and for the first time will be on consoles is pretty damn cool. Now, again, I don't give two shits about League of Legends. I don't understand it. I know there's this whole esports scene with millions of dollars at stake. I get it, right? But I have no interest in that whatsoever. And like these hyper-competitive games that are meant like solely designed for esports and all that stuff, like they're not for me. I'm not the market here. But I think this fits in with kind of the target market for Xbox. And that's huge. That's really, really huge. I don't know how else to put it. I think this is a big partnership and really a big piece of news that I don't think anyone really saw coming. So yeah, Riot Games, those big games are coming to Game Pass, and they said they're coming this winter. So sometime towards the end of this year, or I guess that could technically mean early 2023, technically speaking. After that, they moved into Plague Tale Requiem and showed off a little bit of gameplay with a gameplay trailer. In this, I haven't played a Plague Tale, what is it, Innocence? The first one. I have not played that. But the graphics look great on this. It's coming to Game Pass, obviously. It's coming out sometime in 2022, but I think this game looks fun. And from what I remember seeing from the first game, it seems like there's a little bit more focus on combat. You have more at your fingertips in terms of ways to tackle and handle enemies. Because I think the first game was you're a very passive character, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I haven't played it, so maybe that changes, but I don't know. I think the game looks cool. I'm excited for it. I still need to play the first one though. So, again, just another game in the old backlog, but another great looking game that they showed off. After that was a segment about Forza Motorsport. And if I'm not mistaken, this one isn't numbered, so it's almost like a reboot of the franchise. So the big thing about this game is it's all shown off in 4K, and they really went into detail on kind of what they've done in terms of graphics and their engine. So they initially showed off this little trailer of gameplay. It's a racing game, so you know what you're seeing there. Coming spring of 2023, and it looks very pretty. Then after that, A couple of the devs were talking about some of the dynamic weathering and time of day system that they had put together. And so they said, and I quote, "the most technically advanced racing game," end quote. So in this extended gameplay, which is all kind of one-shot camera that they did, which is kind of cool, they showed off this full dynamic time of day thing that they've got going on. And it's all like this simulated lighting, and there's just like as you're going throughout the day, like all of where the sun is and all that stuff is all simulated, and it's all there. And the detail is fantastic. It's really, really good. Very realistic in terms of like the streets, the cones, the textures on everything. Just, I mean, very well done, I gotta say. I'll give them credit there. Very, very well done. And they also talked about adding some new features that I think a lot of people were requesting, like a fuel management feature where you have to like go and refuel your car in some races and stuff like that, as well as some other features. But the biggest thing they wanted to hype up is how good this game looks and this dynamic time of day system that they've put together. And I gotta say, it is pretty cool because like they one shot, they kind of zoom out and this like park looking thing, and then the sun sets and you can kind of see the shadows rise up, and then it gets kind of dark, and then it turns into this like carnival, and it got all those lighting and there's fireworks going on and all this stuff, and it's, I don't know, it was pretty cool. I gotta say, it was pretty impressive, and it kind of reminded me of what they showed off for Gran Turismo during that state of play with their weather system, and that how dynamic that is and how that was tied to like real world weather. So you're going to kind of see that. So pretty cool stuff. Now, there has been a little bit of controversy around this. If I read into it right, and again, I was only just skimming stuff off Twitter, is that like some of this stuff isn't actually ran on an Xbox Series X console, like it's ran on a high-end PC. Let me see if I can find that real quick. I don't know. I can't find it. I can't find it in detail, but I know it has something to do with Digital Foundry and their analysis of the races, and like in-game races aren't going to look as good as what they were showing in terms of actual gameplay. I don't know. It's super technical. I'm not going to pretend to understand it, but I think there's been a little bit of controversy that's got people up in arms in Twitter. You know how it is on Twitter. I don't know. Take it with a grain of salt. But from what I've gathered, it wasn't running on a Series X. It was running a high-end PC. I don't know that the Series X will be able to run it at that rate. I think it's kind of what it's distilled down to. But either way, they showed off Forza Motorsport, really pushed the ray tracing, the graphic fidelity, and all that stuff. Well, I'm also kind of sitting there. Again, I'm not a big racing guy. Though, again, as I mentioned before, I do want to try Gran Turismo 7 because it does look kind of neat. But I'm more like, they always talk about how realistic things look, the detail in the cars, all this stuff. Both Gran Turismo and Forza does this. But I'm also wondering, like, unless you're in your garage, like tuning up your car or whatever, when you're racing, like, are you really going to notice that? Are you really going to notice this, like, 4K ray tracing, hyper textured, detailed cone that you're flying by at 200 miles an hour? You know what I mean? Like, does it really matter? I would think frame rate is more important. I don't know. Just something I'm thinking about. Either way, it is a very pretty looking game based on what they've shown, which I think is running on a PC. But either way, very, very pretty. After that, they moved into Flight Simulator for their 40th anniversary, which I didn't realize the Microsoft Flight Simulator has been around for 40 years. That's crazy. But an update to this, which I think adds some helicopters, which is neat for those of you who are interested in that game. And the Halo Starship. I forget the name of this starship, but it's the main, Halo Starship that can drop the warthogs and all that stuff that you can fly. And then I believe you can take this practically into space, or at least, orbiting the Earth, which is crazy to think about, to do that in like this simulator game. And that comes out November of this year. And then they moved into another exciting game from Activision Blizzard, Overwatch 2. And this comes out October 2022, so this year. It's free to play. And early access begins October 4th. And they introduced a new hero called the Wastelander. And man, this is an interesting game, I gotta say. So I bought Overwatch, the first one, shortly after it came out in 2016, if I'm not wrong. And I played a decent amount of it when it came out, and I enjoyed my time with it. I think it's really fun. I'm not a competitive multiplayer person by any means, but casually playing that, I was having a lot of fun and playing the different characters, and I think it's a fun game. I'll give it that. I'll give that credit. Absolutely. I think Overwatch is a fun game. If you're playing in a very casual space, I can only imagine how toxic the competitive space is. But regardless, I enjoyed my time with it, and I came back. I've came back to it a couple times over the years, just to play a multiplayer game because it's really fun. But with Overwatch 2, I think this game has had some development troubles, certainly, because I think it was planned to be released earlier than it's actually being released. But I also wonder, why does it need a second game? Because they've done a very good job adding new levels, new characters, this whole thing over the years since the game came out. Why do we need a second game? Overwatch is the platform at this point, and you're just making updates to it. I don't know and this is a genuine question. Outside of this probably absolutely generic single player component, what does Overwatch 2 have that Overwatch 1 doesn't? Because I believe all the characters and levels from the first game are there. So I don't understand. And maybe that's why it's free to play, but I don't know. Either way, that comes out later this year, and I'm pretty sure that's multi-platform, if I'm not mistaken. And then they moved into this pretty short trailer for ARA, A-R-A, History Untold from Oxide Games. And this is a day one Game Pass game. And I really have no idea what this game's about. None. But the trailer really reminded me of Civilization, because they move through various periods of civilization and in various time periods. So that's what I'm assuming this game is, because it looked like that. I got total Civilization vibes from it, but honestly, I have no idea what this game is. So you don't really glean much from the trailer. It was one of those kind of cinematic or CGI type trailers. And if I'm not mistaken, no kind of release window. So sometime in the next 12 months, I guess. And then after that, they moved into Elder Scrolls Online. Showed off a little trailer for their High Isle expansion, which actually comes out next week from the show, which would be this week, the week I'm recording. And actually coming out a day after this podcast goes up on June 21st is when it comes out. And so, yeah, more Elder Scrolls Online. I've talked about this game a little bit. I think this game absolutely fascinates me. And I dabbled in it for a couple of hours a couple of years ago, just to see what it was all about. And it's pretty cool. There's a lot of, I think, care and love and detail. And ever since its launch, which I believe it launched in 2014, they've done a great job, every year, having expansions. I think because I think this would be their 8th expansion, and that's every year, a new expansion, which is crazy to think about. So going in as a new player is so intimidating because there's so much content there. But this game trucks along. I don't know what their player count looks like these days, but I think it's doing well for them, and that's why they're continuing to support it. So if you're a fan of that game, you got another expansion to look forward to. In keeping with their online multiplayer games, Bethesda showed off a new DLC for Fallout 76, for those few of you that are still playing that game, called The Pit. So you go back to The Pit, which is a DLC expansion for Fallout 3, which I actually never played this one. The DLC, I played Fallout 3. But that's pretty exciting. I know The Pit was a pretty fan favorite DLC out there. This comes out September, and you actually get to go to Pittsburgh and kind of do that thing in Fallout 76. And this is another one that kind of baffles me, because This game seems to be just kind of still chugging along. Again, I don't know what the player count on this is. I don't think it's as nearly even close as high as Elder Scrolls Online, but there must be enough people interested in this for them to continue to pump out content for it. So there you go. And then it's Forza Horizon 5 DLC with their partnership with Hot Wheels. So that Hot Wheels DLC comes out July 19th of 2022. So if you're a fan of those, you got that to look forward to. And then another trailer for Ark 2. And this is a console exclusive, as I understand it, for Xbox. Comes out 2023. And they showed Vin Diesel again. And he just had like this little like grunt in there. And it's just so, it's like the Vin Diesel grunt, like, I don't know. That's a terrible impression of it, but because he's like on a dinosaur and he's on this big dinosaur and he's like looking at something, and then he does the grunt and it's like Ark 2. And I can't believe Vin Diesel's in this game. Whatever this game is, Vin Diesel's in it. And it just reminds me of that reveal trailer for Ark 2, where it was this whole thing with Vin Diesel. And it almost looked like, I think a lot of people probably thought this, it looked like Horizon Forbidden West. It looked like that game. And I'm like, no way is Vin Diesel in the next Horizon game. Thank God he wasn't. But he's in Ark 2. And so they showed a brief trailer for that. Comes out in 2023, as I mentioned. So, I don't know. If you're into that game, you got some Vin Diesel coming your way. And that does nothing for me. And then we saw Scorn again. They showed off a little trailer for Scorn. And that's a console exclusive. It's a first-person game, and I don't understand what this game is or what you're doing, like what the purpose is, because it's just really, really weird. Like you're like, oh, these like tentacles and like hookups connected to you, and it's like gory. I don't understand what's happening here. So I'm very curious what the reception of this game will be when it comes out. We did get a release date, October 21st, later this year. But again, that trailer was pretty brief and it didn't show very much of anything. So I still have no idea what we're getting ourselves into with Scorn. So, yeah. And then they showed off Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn, which this is a third-person action-adventure game. And I gotta say, it looks interesting in terms of the combat. Looks open world. You can kind of explore. You're going to go on quests and stuff like that. But it's kind of got this generic looking character. I don't know. It just kind of looks like your generic, like female character. I don't know. I feel like we kind of see a lot of that these days, which again, I have nothing against female characters. There's some awesome ones out there. But this one, I don't know. At least in the trailer, I kind of got generic vibes. But hopefully they build her out a little bit, provide a cool backstory or something. And, you can, I don't know, have something to look forward to there. Or maybe I'm way off basis and it's a create your own character and that just happened to be the character, the creator that they showed off. So I don't know here, but those are just the vibes I got because it just seemed just kind of generic. But that's also a day one to Game Pass. Comes out early 2023. If I didn't already say that, I'm probably repeating myself here. But yeah, Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn. Then they moved into Mojang. And finally, we got to see that new Mojang game with Minecraft Legends. And when they finally started to show some gameplay for this, I immediately got Dragon Quest Builders vibes. If you know that game, you'll know what I'm talking about with that kind of third person, very kind of scaled back. Your character is kind of small in this world and you can build stuff and all that stuff. That's immediately what it looked like to me, was Dragon Quest Builders. But apparently this is an action strategy game. So I don't really know what that entails, I guess, but looks kind of neat if you're into the Minecraft world. And I think it'll be exciting to see how well this does, because I don't think Minecraft Dungeons did as well as they'd hoped to, though. I went back to that game a few months ago, and there's a ton of content for that game. So they've been continually supporting it. So maybe there's still a ton of people that played it, but I don't think that game hit as they expected it to. So it'll be interesting to see with Minecraft Legends how that does. I do like the fact that it's a different style of game. So I like that they're exploring different genres with their IP. So I want to commend them for that. This is slated to come out sometime in 2023, is what they said. The next game after that is a game called Lightyear Frontier, and this is a console launch exclusive. And this game looks kind of weird. So you're like this in this mech, and you're mining, harvesting resources. You can kind of build your settlement. You can upgrade your mech. There's co-op, or you can play it single player. So it kind of seems like this almost survival style game with mechs, like you're a dude in a mech. I don't know, on this kind of mysterious planet. So that's all I kind of gathered from the trailer. Looks interesting if you're in that kind of those maybe management system games or kind of, you know, survival style games. I think you might like it. So check that out. That comes out sometime in 2023. For me, it didn't really do anything for me. I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't know. I'm not into those style of games, so it doesn't resonate. Then they showed off Gunfire Reborn, which I think this game is out on PC, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I feel like I've seen this game somewhere before, but I gotta say, it's got a really cute art style. It's a 4-player co-op game. It's a roguelike game. And looks like you just go and kind of shoot your way through these levels. But yeah, like I'm pretty sure I've seen this game before. Maybe it was some trailer or something, but I feel like it's out and now it's coming over to Xbox, but I don't know. I could be wrong. That comes out October of 2022. And then this next game I thought looked really awesome, I gotta say. And it's called The Last Case of Benedict Fox. And this is a looks like a 2.5D puzzle platformer, but like you're playing a detective, and it looks like you're kind of some sort of detective or an investigative game where you're trying to like solve this mystery. And it's from Plot Twist is the developer, and I just think it looks really cool. I love that premise. And if I go back to IGN, let's see how they described the game here. So it's a new story-focused Metroidvania game, okay, with a gothic art style. The trailer showed gameplay will revolve around entering the consciousness of a dead person with supernatural abilities. Okay, so I'm way off. But either way, looks like you're still trying to solve a mystery, and there's some combat in there. I don't know, I think it looks awesome. I think it looks really, really cool. And comes to Game Pass day one. It's a spring 2023 release. I'm also curious if this is a multi-platform game. Well, from what I can tell, it looks like it's just coming to Windows platforms. That'd be Xbox and PC, which is fine. It'll be on Game Pass, so I can play it on Xbox. I think it looks really cool, though. I was seeing it, and at first I was kind of like, what am I watching? And then as I kind of see more of it, I'm like, okay, I kind of like what I'm seeing here. So I don't know. I think it looks really cool. Check it out if you're interested in 2D, 2.5D type games or Metroidvania games. There might be something there for you. And then after that is a really interesting game called As Dusk Falls. And this is from Interior Nights, who's developing it. And I think the interesting thing about this game is its art style. It has a motion graphic art style, is how they described it. And as you're kind of watching it, the faces, I don't know, look really weird at times. It's a really unique art style, and I think it's really cool, but it kind of looks awkward at sometimes with their faces, because their faces are pretty real. Like, they're very well done. So I don't know. It's a very unique art style. So check out the trailer and you'll see what I'm talking about. But this is an interactive story, essentially, to where there's multiple paths you can go through, different scenarios and outcomes, I think, that you can play through. And you can actually play this game with other people. They said up to 8 players. Kind of experience this story of these characters and this family. And it's supposed to, I think it's got some heavy themes in there and be pretty emotional. So could be kind of cool if you're into those types of games. This comes out July 19th, and of course is day one on Game Pass. I don't know if it's something I'd play right away for me personally, but it does look interesting, and I would say if it reviews well, I might check it out, because I do enjoy those kind of narrative, interactive story type games. As I mentioned, I'm looking forward to trying out The Quarry here soon, so maybe there's something there for me. After that is a game which comes from NetEase, which I believe is a Chinese company. And I think this game has been in China for a while, called Nakara Blade Point. And this is the first time this game is launching on consoles, and it's a console launch exclusive for Xbox. Comes out June 23rd, 2022, so this next week, actually, if you're interested in playing that. And yeah, I don't know, it just kind of looks like a action adventure style game from what I gathered. Let's see what IGN said about it. Nothing of interest, everything I've just told you. The interesting thing that they're bringing over to the console version and releasing is a new campaign mode. So there'll be a campaign mode for you to play through. Otherwise, I think it's a kind of a multiplayer focused game. So that's coming out very, very soon. And then from Obsidian, they showed off a game called Pentiment. And this is a really interesting looking game. It's got this hand-drawn art style. It's a narrative adventure game in which you are basically set out to solve this crime. So it's a crime story that's set in 16th century Bavaria. And you play this character and you kind of got to go and try to solve this mystery. And it's a really unique art style. I kind of dig it. It almost looks kind of generic compared to some of the other games in terms of aesthetics, but it's a really cool art style. And you're trying to solve this murder, solve the case. And it's, I don't know, I think it's a pretty cool concept. And it's interesting from Obsidian because it seems like Obsidian's got quite a few projects that they've been working on. We'll get into the one other one right after this. But, well, I'll just get right into it. They showed Grounded next, so we'll get into that in a second. So they Grounded, Pentiment. We know they also have Avowed, Outer Worlds, like 4 games. I don't know how big the studio is, but that seems spread pretty thin. Now, presumably this game, Pentiment, is probably just a smaller team, maybe a side passion project they had going on. I don't know, but interesting there from Obsidian that they're working on a lot of stuff over there. Now with Pentiment, I got to say, it looks interesting. It comes out November of 2022, so sometime in November, presumably. I don't know. I'm intrigued by it. I don't know if it's something I would play right away, but I'm intrigued. And then, as I mentioned, after that, Obsidian showed off Grounded. And I thought this game was already out, but apparently this is the first time it's coming out of early access. So it's been in that game preview mode for however long, at least a year more? When it finally, so it's finally coming out of early access. This is that survival game. I do think it has a cool art style. But now I think the story is finished where you can play through it in its entirety, and you're basically trying to unravel why and whatever happened to you, why you got, kind of shrunk down in this backyard here. This comes out September of 2022. And one thing I got to say with this, I despise early access for this reason. I mean, this game, I'm going to look this up. When did Grounded release? Okay, so Grounded was initially released on July 28th of 2020. So by the time this comes out, it'll have been in early access for 2 years. That's wild to me. Like, I get the idea of early access is to try to generate some revenue or some hype before your game releases. And a lot of these early access games on PC, I know, where you pay for them. So you're paying for an unfinished product up front. It's just, I mean, I don't know. I hate the idea of early access, but this game has been early access for 2 years, and now we're just now getting the final game. I don't know, man. That doesn't resonate with me. I don't know. Maybe a lot of people, they said, I think over 10 million or so have played this game. Like, that's great. But I don't know. I don't know how many people are still going to be interested in this game because it's been so long, I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of it. It seems really weird to me, but if you're a fan of it out there, you have that to look forward to. I will say that the story mode, sounds cool, but I just don't like survival games. I don't want to go through survival and camp building and all that stuff just to kind of, experience this story. So that's a game that's not for me. After that is a game called Ereban, so Ereban, Shadow Legacy. And this is a console launch exclusive. And it looks like a stealth game, kind of where you sneak around, you're taking down enemies, navigating this world, and you have kind of these unique abilities. Like, I think there's like an invisibility one. and it helps you sneak around and stuff like that. So I don't know, kind of looked like a smaller, maybe AA or indie style of game it's coming out. This comes out in 2023. Nothing shouted amazing to me from this game. Again, it didn't really speak to me in any way. So, but check it out if you're interested in some stealth games that might appeal to you. Then after that is a big one, Diablo 4. Finally got to see some more of this game. They showed off and introduced the 5th and final class, the Necromancer. So Diablo 4 will launch with 5 classes, which are the Necromancer, Barbarian, Sorceress, Rogue, and Druid. So that's pretty cool. I am kind of bummed my Paladin class isn't in there because I'm pretty sure that's the class I picked on Diablo 3. But either way, we finally got to see some Xbox Series X gameplay they showed off. And they talked a little bit about the game. This game seems very much darker than Diablo 3. They have robust character customization, which is kind of cool, because I don't think they had that in any of the other Diablo games. You kind of just play as that character. Maybe they did. I don't know. It seems more robust this time around, which is pretty cool. And I think the big thing is with this game is it's open world. There's no kind of linear path that you follow. And I was kind of thinking about this, and I think that'll actually work pretty well with a Diablo game. And so I'm very much looking forward to that. They mentioned there's like 150 dungeons. You can reclaim some strongholds, which to me, again, I think like Far Cry 3, or, Far Cry games, I should say, where you kind of take back these camps, or even in Assassin's Creeds where there's just this like camps of bad guys and you try to take them down and reclaim it. So I'm thinking about that, but I think in the context of Diablo, I think it's going to work really well. And I think it fits in it pretty perfectly. So that's something you do. There's also local events that kind of pop up, and it's a shared world with other players. And so I talked a little bit about this. I think it's the same kind of concept, at least from what I gathered with my time with Diablo Immortal on the mobile, of a shared world. But I'm also kind of hoping you can turn that off if you want to. I don't know. I guess what bothers me is I don't want my screen to be populated with tons of other characters unless I'm in an area where it makes sense. Like if I'm doing narrative or those types of quests and stuff like that, I don't want other random characters mingling about, I guess. It really kind of breaks immersion for me at that point. So that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. They've fully enabled crossplay, which is great. And then there's also a PvP mode in a designated area for it, which is kind of neat. And they were talking about how, like, if you're actually really good at PvP, you basically get a target on your back and people can see that and will try to take you out. So that's an interesting aspect. I don't know how fun or how much PvP will be in that game, but it's there. And then they mentioned endgame. So they said that the last story mission is basically the beginning of endgame mode. And so I know endgame is really big in this. They said there's going to be lots to do, and there's going to be support for this game for years, which is expected from Diablo. So this game comes out sometime in 2023, so presumably in the first half of 2023. And I got to say, I am very much looking forward to it. I think it looks awesome. I think it looks super, super cool. Again, I'm not a Diablo diehard. I've never played Diablo 1 or 2. My first foray into it was Diablo 3, like I'm sure a lot of people are with me on that. So Diablo 3 was great. Diablo Immortal, maybe I'll get back to that, but it's because it's a mobile game. If it was on Switch, I would absolutely be playing it, but I don't know. I don't like playing really games on my iPad or phone, so there's that. So Diablo 4, I think it looks awesome. I love the idea of this open world in terms of just kind of being able to explore and go through these, maybe do some side quests, find some dungeons. I just think it's going to fit the Diablo formula very, very well. So I'm excited, man. I'm very excited about this and cannot wait to play it. And then they showed off Season 7 of Sea of Thieves. And basically, I think they said you become a captain, you can save your loadouts, customize your ship, name your ship. And they shared all this information in a clever song, like a pirate song. And I thought it was very well put together. So I want to give them kudos to that. Shout out to Rare for putting that together for Sea of Thieves. This game still chugs along, man. I think this game has had over 20 million players. It's got a strong fan base. kind of one of those other turnaround success stories in terms of live service games. People love it, man. And I think there's a lot to love there, but it's just not a game for me. This comes out July 21st. And then after that, they showed Ravenlock, which this game looked interesting to me. It basically, from what I gathered in the trailer, it kind of looked like Alice in Wonderland. It's got this 3D pixel art, almost blocky art style and world. Comes out in 2023, and I think it actually could be pretty cool. Let's see what IGN has to... these guys have more details than I do, so no additional details. I don't know. It kind of looks like an action-adventure game with clear inspiration from Alice in Wonderland. I think it could be cool. I'm going to keep my eye on it. It's day one on Game Pass, so might be something to dive into and check out. Then a game from the Inside and Limbo creators, at least that's what they said, another console launch exclusive called Cocoon. And this is like puzzle platforming, but in an isometric world. It looked really, really interesting. And this is set in a sci-fi world on an alien planet. And from what they showed in the very, very brief gameplay or the trailer, like they were this thing was taking orbs, and then you kind of go into the orb into this other world, and then you solve the puzzle. I don't know what I was looking at, but it looked really interesting. I love Inside and Limbo, so there might be something here worth checking out. This game comes out in 2023. The next game from Team Ninja and Koei Tecmo Games is called Wolong Final Dynasty. And this is very much a samurai, very Neo-esque, which is expected. Getting a lot of those vibes. Looks kind of cool. Showed off a little trailer for that. It'd be interesting to see more, actual gameplay of it once it gets closer. So this game comes out early 2023. And then a really surprising announcement, which I don't think anyone saw coming. Xbox has partnered up with Atlas Games to bring Persona 5 Royal to Xbox, of course, on Game Pass. This comes to Game Pass October 21st of this year. They're also bringing Persona 4 Golden and Persona 3 Portable to Xbox, which is crazy, crazy cool. Now, Persona 5 Royals are already on PlayStation, but these games are all also migrating to other platforms. So Persona 4, they didn't announce this, but a couple of days later, when they finally could, these games are also coming to other platforms as well. So Persona 4 Golden and Persona 3 Portable will be available on PlayStation 4 and I believe Switch. Same with Persona 5 Royal. So whatever platform you're on, you can play Persona games, which is pretty cool. Persona 5 is just so damn good. It really is. And I've heard really good things about Persona 4 Golden. Like I said, I have it on my Vita. I have a sealed copy of the Vita version. But now I'm just going to keep it sealed and I'll play it on other platforms. Because I've been wanting to play that game for a very long time. So that's exciting. Again, didn't see this one coming. And then after that is a very weird kind of announcement, but either way, interesting news of note. They had Kojima-san come out, and they announced a partnership between Xbox and Kojima. And the intent is to create a brand new experience using the Xbox's cloud technology. And it's a new game that no one has experienced before. So Kojima basically said that something he's kind of had in his vision, he's partnered with Xbox, and in using their technology and resources, he can kind of make this vision a reality. And that's it. That's all they have to say. It was just basically announcing this partnership. And then one thing I do want to put an emphasis on here is that Kojima said, and I quote, "may take some time," end quote, before we see any, the next announcement. So that means we're not seeing this game for years. It's going to be a while before we see this game. So at least now we know, because it's kind of been rumored that Kojima was going to be working with Xbox. Now it's official. That's happening. Kojima has also said he is still continuing to work with PlayStation, so presumably Death Stranding 2 is happening. And yeah, so I mean, good for him. He's playing both sides. I think he's doing just fine as an independent developer. And so presumably he's off the market from acquisition, which I think is good. We want that. We want Kojima on all platforms, right? I mean, that's good. And then they wrapped the show up with, of course, the big one, Starfield. And we finally got to see some gameplay. Finally. So they showed off quite a bit of gameplay. And I think this last segment with, of course, Todd Howard kind of interjecting, walking us through certain things, lasted about 15 minutes. But the first section of gameplay was kind of gave us a lot. And so it was pretty early on in the game. They showed off first and third person perspectives, which you'd kind of expect. There's like scanning and mining resources on the planets, which is very much like No Man's Sky. We'll come back to that in a minute. Looks like you kind of have a jetpack too, because at one point he kind of jumped up, the character jumped up and then almost like jetted across this valley to get to this like abandoned facility on this moon planet that he was exploring. And there was a bunch of space pirates there. So he kind of switched to like an SMG weapon and then kind of went in, and you can aim down sights, which is good. And I gotta say, the combat actually seems more fluent for a Bethesda game than previous Bethesda RPGs in terms of kind of your shooting mechanics and kind of how fast the character was moving and stuff like that. No, it's not like Call of Duty or anything, but it seems like a step up in terms of its shooting mechanics. So I'll give them credit there. And then they showed off the kind of the main game hub, the main city, which is called New Atlantis. And apparently this is like the biggest city they've ever built in a game. So have that, take that with it, what you will. And then they showed off some dialogue when you talk to characters. It's kind of got that zoomed into the person's face. And then I've kind of seen this do the rounds on Twitter about this, like the face comparisons between, PlayStation and Xbox with this game. And I mean, the faces, they look fine. I think the graphics on it look fine. They do look a little almost clay-like, like very smooth character models and stuff like that. So I don't know. It is what it is. And also your character doesn't talk. So we're kind of getting away from Fallout 4, what they did in Fallout 4. We're getting back to where you are literally role-playing this character. So I think that's cool. I think that's a good thing. They also briefly kind of went over some of the factions that you'll encounter, which again, that's expected from a Bethesda RPG. They also went over character creation, which is very, very robust. I think it's the robust they've ever had in terms of different options and kind of scaling and stuff like that, which is cool. A lot of people enjoy that. There's also, they mentioned crafting. So there's a deep crafting system where you can craft, weapons, mods, stuff like that. I kind of feel like meh with that, because I feel like in Fallout 4, it was just a little much, in my opinion. But I expect it'll be that here. You can also build your own outposts on planets, which is basically the settlements from Fallout. That's exactly what it is. So settlements is back from Fallout, and that's like, in my opinion, that was the worst thing in Fallout 4. And I'm sure quite a few people liked it. Obviously that's what helped them turn into Fallout 76, where you're literally building your own settlement and all that. That's like kind of one of the main points of the game. But I did not like it. And I have no interest in this aspect of the game. Like, I just want to play through a cool story. I don't want to spend, 10 hours building a space station. But the other thing, you can actually build your own spaceships, which this does kind of seem cool. And I could see myself getting involved in this, to where you can customize and design your own spaceship. There's lots of different options in terms of colors and pieces and parts and all that stuff. You can actually choose your own crew members, customize the look and the layout, all that stuff. That seems pretty cool. And I could get into that. I like the idea of that. And then they also mentioned that you can fly the spaceships up into space and do space battles, which didn't look too bad. I gotta say, I mean, it looked kind of what you'd expect. It was like a third person and you're kind of shooting another, spaceship and all that stuff. So I don't know. That is what it is. And then actually, one thing I want to say about that is I'm curious on how flying from planet to planet works. They didn't really talk about that. So like if you're going from one planet to the next, so like in No Man's Sky, you kind of just enter hyperdrive, and then you just kind of go, and then it, a couple minutes later, you're at the next planet. So there's going to be something like that. Like, what does planet to planet look like? Or galaxy to galaxy look like? Is it kind of this fast travel type system? I don't know. That's what I'm curious on. I'm also curious if there's interesting things to find in space. So like, are you going to find like, let's say an abandoned like mining facility or an abandoned spaceship kind of just floating out in space that maybe is cool. There's maybe cool items there or worth exploring, or a side quest to do. I don't know. Because if there's nothing there of value to explore, then it's meaningless. So that'll be interesting to see. They also mentioned that as you're flying, you can actually land anywhere on the planet. There's over 100 systems to explore and over 1,000 planets to explore, which that's a lot, dude. That's a lot, and highly, highly ambitious. This game, in the end, coming 2023, no release window. So note that, coming 2023. So originally November 11th of this year, now sometime in 2023. So they probably realized they got burned on that release date, and they're like, no, we're not putting anything on this game. Which, fine, fair. Now, one of the things I've been seeing a lot with Starfield is the inevitable comparisons to No Man's Sky. That's just seems to be happening. And I saw some screenshots floating around where like the robot dude you see at the beginning of the trailer is like the same robot dude in No Man's Sky that your character can have. There's dinosaurs on planets that looks just like No Man's Sky. The mining and kind of shooting the laser, gathering rocks is just like No Man's Sky. So there's going to be a lot of No Man's Sky comparisons. And it's kind of one of those things like once you see it, you're like, oh yeah, you can't unsee it. Now, I'm sure this game was in development before No Man's Sky came out, but who's to say that maybe they didn't borrow some ideas there? I don't know, but it's inevitably going to get these comparisons. And, in my opinion, it's kind of one of those things, like it is what it is. It's kind of goofy and kind of, I don't know, almost, I don't know what the right word is, but like, it is what it is. I don't know. I think that's the best way I can put it. So we're going to see that. But the one thing I do want to say is 1,000 planets is way too many. Like when they mention that, I'm like, oh my God, like really? Like on one hand, okay, that's cool. You have that's a big game, right? That's super ambitious. And I can see why this game has taken them so long to build and put together. But on the other hand, like I really thought we were past the point in kind of the late PS4, Xbox One generation into the beginning of this generation where every game had to be the biggest and bestest and longest game ever in the AAA space. Like I thought it moved away from that to where like quality is better. Your game doesn't have to be 150,000 hours for it to be good. It can be 10 to 20 hours and be exceptional. I had thought we moved away from that kind of marketing, but apparently not, because that's how they marketed Starfield. So that doesn't appeal to me. Again, as someone who has limited gaming time, as I'm sure a lot of you out there are, like you don't have hundreds of hours of free time to spend on exploring 1,000 different planets. You know what I mean? It just seems a little much. And the other question I have with that is, okay, there's 100 systems, 1,000 planets. Are all of those planets worth my time exploring? Or are they just going to be empty wastelands? Like, is there something of value worth my time on each of these planets? I don't know. I find that hard to believe that there would be. But maybe there is. Maybe they literally put together 1,000 handcrafted planets that is worth your time. But I doubt it. And I think I saw somewhere in an interview that they talked about there is random generation being used for some of the content in the game. Again, we go back to No Man's Sky, right? All those planets, the however many planets, the millions of planets No Man's Sky marketed, it's all randomly generated. So you never know what you're going to get. I'm kind of getting the same vibes here from that regard. And that just that doesn't do it for me. I would much rather have a more catered experience, like 10 to 20 planets max of handcrafted experiences that are going to be worth my time. I as I've gotten older, I kind of want games to respect my time. And there are a lot of games that don't respect your time. They're just filler, they're padded, they're there just so you can be tied to the game. There's nothing of value or consequence there. And games that do respect your time, I appreciate much more than games that don't. And so with 1,000 planets, I mean, again, my initial gut reaction is you're not respecting my time. Like this is too much for me. And I can't remember how I think you're through the main quest line. You're only exploring a fraction of those, like a very small fraction. So it's like, why? Like, why do you need this many planets? So I don't know. That really stood out to me as kind of a downside. But I gotta say, overall, I liked what I saw of Starfield. And in the first kind of stint of gameplay they were showing, it kind of reminded me of why I liked Bethesda RPGs. You know, the likes of Fallout and in Oblivion, Skyrim, etc. In that, and I've said this, I think, in one of my old videos years ago, that Bethesda is one of the best, if not the best, at creating games that make you explore. And they do it, like, exploring Bethesda games are just such a fun time. Because they do such a good job at making you want to see what's around the next corner, what's in that next building, what's in that cave. Like, you just kind of want to keep it going. And that's why, like, you just get lost in their games. They do it really well. And I kind of got reminded of that in watching Starfield and thinking like, okay, there's there's planets to explore. There's different, maybe abandoned spaceships or facilities. And that's cool. I like the idea of exploring. I love sci-fi. So I like this pairing of like Bethesda RPG elements and sci-fi. I think it's fantastic. I really, really like that. I will say too that I liked, from what I saw of the combat for the most part. I think it looks like an improvement, I'll say. And I don't know. I think the game could be a lot of fun. I think there's something here. I think this is going to be a game that a lot of people are going to be playing for years to come, like a Skyrim. Will it have the impact that Skyrim had? I don't think so. But I could be wrong. We'll see. But I'm excited for it. I definitely am excited for it. And we'll see how it does when it comes out. I will say it's not the prettiest looking game. I don't think it was running super well. Again, I was watching a compressed video, so maybe maybe there's that. They still got some time to polish it and stuff like that. But Bethesda's known for their bugs and their shitty performance issues, so I would expect the same with Starfield, which I think is a shame because this game looks super ambitious. And if this game is as ambitious as they're talking, you couple that with their history of bugs and problems, that could be rough. And maybe that's why they delayed the game, to try to squash some of that stuff and get it in a fairly confident state when they do release it. But I think this game is so critical to both Bethesda from a brand perspective as well as Xbox that they have to nail it. I think this is probably the most important game for Xbox in a long time. Like Halo Infinite was up there. I think it did okay, though it's kind of left a sour taste, I think, in a lot of people's mouths because of the lack of support on the multiplayer side. But with Starfield, I think this is the game that everyone's talking about. This is the game that everyone's been looking forward to since the acquisition. And I think this is a kind of make it or break it point for Xbox. Not saying if this game flops or does poorly that Xbox is going to go under. No, Xbox is going to be fine. But I think it will either change people's opinions on the Xbox first-party games lineup, or it will reaffirm those opinions. So I think it's big. I do think it's very, very big. Now, overall, I thought the showcase was pretty good. I think it's clear that Xbox learned from, their past E3s to just focus on the games, focus on the gameplay, and do less talking. And I think they nailed that. I think this year, and even last year, I think they nailed it. So I think they finally understood and found the right formula to kind of put together a solid showcase. So that was good from that perspective. Now, one thing I will say is not all of these games appealed to me. And again, I've mentioned this, anytime you watch a showcase, that's going to be the case. Not every game is going to speak to you. Not every game is meant for you, and that's okay. And some of these games, like Persona, Diablo, Silksong, I plan on playing elsewhere, if I'm being honest, because they are multi-platform. There were quite a few multi-platform games in the showcase. So from the exclusive standpoint, there wasn't a ton that appealed to me. A couple I may try, but not the same way like PlayStation exclusives appeal to me. And then the rest of them are like, okay, these are awesome games, and I like what I'm seeing, but I'll probably play it on a different platform, like PlayStation, or in the case of Silksong, I plan on playing that on my Switch. So take that with it what you will. But I think this also kind of reemphasizes what I've said before about the target market differences between Xbox and PlayStation, kind of that persona player between the two platforms. Because Xbox is more multiplayer and co-op focused. And you kind of see that with some of their games from the first party lineup. Redfall, that to me looks like a built from ground up cooperative experience. Obviously Forza has that multiplayer component. Halo's had that. Grounded is that, so a lot of their games seem to be kind of pushed in that direction, for better or worse. And that appeals to a lot of people. Don't get me wrong. But the PlayStation side, they're more focused on kind of single player and narrative driven focused experiences. And that appeals more to me. And that's why, I look at some of these games, and while some of them look pretty cool, they don't resonate with me the same way like a PlayStation single player game would. Because that's kind of just more of what I like and what I'm looking forward to. And so I really feel like this reiterates and highlights that point. Now, again, there's overlap between these two personas that I'm talking about, but I think you can kind of see those differences based on the games people play on those platforms and the games that are made for those platforms. Now, the interesting thing is with that overlap, you start to see them kind of bleed into the other one. Like Starfield's obviously a big single player game, right? So that's going to kind of compete with the single player games like on the PlayStation side. And then we know PlayStation is shifting focus on to do more live service games and get into that multiplayer space, which I think is good. And I think they need that. I think it's one of the things that they're lacking on the platform for those folks. So you see this kind of foray and each side kind of trying to bulk up on the area that they're not necessarily strong in. But one thing that bugged me about this showcase is kind of the lack of concrete dates or windows. Like, I think there was only, let's see. So they said the games are targeted in the next 12 months, but I counted only 8 that had actual release dates of those games. All the games that we just went through. The rest are either some sort of month or year, or a season or year, or just a vague 2023. And that just bugs me. Now, I know part of that could be they don't want to put down the release dates and get tied to certain dates like they did with Starfield and kind of go through that again. And I concede to that. I get that. I can't blame them. But after that move with Starfield and kind of this history, I guess, of inconsistent deliveries from the Xbox first party lineup, that I'm not getting confident that you can even hit these vague targets. Like, I just feel like they're empty promises at this point. Like, they put together this infographic towards the end of the showcase that, hey, look at all these games we just showed up. Here's what's coming in 2022. Here's what's coming in 2023. And then the asterisk at the bottom right of the corner shows that these are target dates for these games. These are not actual release dates. They're just targets. And they may not meet these targets, as we've seen. So, I don't know. I just don't get a confident feeling until Xbox can deliver on that. And I think that's absolutely fair. But the lack of inconsistent dates, regardless of maybe being the better choice, just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Because it just, I don't know, it just felt kind of wishy-washy. And and kind of that blank marketing statement, like, look at all the games that we have. Like, I feel like we've been hearing that for years, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Additionally, one of the things I noticed, as I'm sure many of you did, is that we didn't see several of the big games, like Indiana Jones, no show, Avowed, no show, Outer Worlds 2, no show, or Hellblade 2. And that's just a couple of the big ones that I know are kind of in the pipeline. And that's pretty weird to me. I think a lot of people were expecting that. I know I was. For Avowed, especially, and Hellblade 2, I thought we were for sure going to see it. I thought Hellblade 2 was actually going to be coming out this year. And I think that's one of the predictions I made. I was pretty confident in that because we saw Hellblade 2, a pretty lengthy gameplay demo at the Game Awards this past December. And so I figured that game has got to be pretty close to being finished. But still no release window. So presumably that game's not coming out in the next 12 months based on what they're telling us, which kind of makes me wonder, like, what happened? Or was that trailer just put together for the sake of putting a trailer together? I don't know. It just really kind of makes you wonder, like, what's going on there. And the same with Avowed. Like, I didn't think this game would be a 2022 game by any means, let alone a 20, you know, I thought maybe best case scenario end of 2023 is a big hitter to close out the year, because I think a lot of people are going to be excited about it. But I think a lot of people were expecting to see something about it, and we didn't see anything. And again, I mentioned it earlier when we talked about Obsidian, but they're spread. They seem to be spread pretty thin across a couple different projects, so maybe that has something to do with it. But I do think it was kind of noteworthy, to say the least. And also the other thing we didn't hear about, which I thought I predicted and I thought we would hear about, is Deathloop. Now, Deathloop, remember, is the PS5 exclusive, but I'm pretty sure that was a 1-year deal, exclusive deal from Sony. So I thought for sure, come September, when that 1-year exclusive is up, come day one to Game Pass, the next day on Game Pass after that expiration. But no, we did not even a mention of it when we were talking about Arcane at the beginning of the show. And actually, when I forget the guy who was talking, but when they were talking about Arcane Studios, he was like, oh yeah, Arcane, the makers of Dishonored and Prey. No mention of Deathloop. And they made Deathloop, right? Like, am I insane? Deathloop developer. Arcane Studios. Yeah, so I'm not crazy. Just really weird to me. Like, that's a pretty big game, and we still don't know if or when it's coming to Game Pass, or you know, so I just thought that was really weird. So maybe I'm totally wrong on the contract, and maybe the contract is different, or maybe there's some sort of clause that they can't mention it until closer to that window, or maybe the exclusive period's longer and I'm just way off. I'm really not sure, but that I thought for sure we would see that, especially since we know a couple of those big games moved out of 2022. I figured, oh, well, they can fall back on Deathloop and have a 2022 game. That's totally fine. But I guess not. So I don't know. That just really kind of struck me. Now, outside of that, though, again, I do think it was a solid showing, and I think there's a lot to be excited about on the Xbox side. Though I still think we're waiting for that answer about, is Game Pass good for games? I still think we're waiting for that. And I think as we move towards the end of 2023, I think finally, once we get a lot of these big games out, we'll start to see that. But I still got to go back to this point that if you look at that kind of infographic of games that they've talked about on there, from an exclusive standpoint, I just really don't see very, like, I don't know. I don't see the big hitters. And again, maybe I'm just not the audience for it. But as I'm looking at this, let's see, we see in terms of first-party exclusives, you have Grounded. Obviously, you've got the Fallout DLC, but that's multi-platform. Elder Scrolls, that's multi-platform. High on Life, but that one doesn't really appeal to me. Atomic Heart, which that wasn't shown, but I'm pretty sure this is console exclusive to Xbox and does look pretty dope. If you've ever seen that trailer, look it up. It looks pretty awesome. I kind of get BioShock vibes. So we'll see about that game. But let's see. Persona 5 is on other platforms. Microsoft Flight Simulator, some DLC for that. And that's it in terms of, I think, like really console exclusives that I can see on this list. And not all of, I don't know. I'm not seeing anything that screams like, yes, Xbox is the place to play for exclusive games. Now, again, they've got other games coming to Game Pass, like A Plague Tale, Requiem. Valheim, I think, will be pretty big on Game Pass. That's As Dusk Falls game on Game Pass. Let's see, Persona 5 Royal on Game Pass. So they've got other games coming to Game Pass, coming to the service, which is, hey, that's the consumer-friendly move, right? But when we talk about first-party, like exclusives or games that says, hey, you need to get an Xbox for this game, I'm not seeing anything for the rest of 2022. So I think back to the point of like, okay, 2022, like what do you got? What's coming up for the rest of 2022? I'm not seeing anything that really answers that question. So I still feel like there's a void there. Moving into 2023, even that first half of 2023, obviously you've got Starfield, Forza Motorsport, and Redfall. And then outside of that, let's see, Stalker 2, I think that's a console exclusive. Obviously the Riot games, I think will be console exclusive. So definitely more in the first start of 2023, but also on this infographic, you have Diablo, that's not console exclusive. Resident Evil 2, that's not console exclusive. And so they got Dead Space on here as well. The Persona games on here. So definitely some big games coming to Game Pass, but not from the first party lineup. I mean, outside of those big three, I would say with Redfall, Starfield, and Forza, I'm not really seeing those big hitters. But again, that could change. 2023 definitely looks better than the end of 2022. I will give them that. But I guess what the point I'm trying to make here is that, I'm not seeing, those big industry defining AAA titles on the Xbox side. So I don't know. Again, maybe I'm not like, back to the target demographic between Xbox and PlayStation. Maybe I'm just not it on the Xbox side, and that's okay. PlayStation certainly appeals to me more, but you compare that with PlayStation's 2022, seemingly God of War is still coming out, Forspoken's coming out, and then I know going into early next year, you also have Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7, the new remake part 2. I think the Crisis Core game they announced is coming to both Xbox and PlayStation, so I can't really go there. But I don't know. I see some of the bigger games, I guess, in my opinion, on the PlayStation side that I guess speak to me more than the exclusives on the Xbox side. And that's regardless of the value of Game Pass. Because again, if you have Game Pass, there's going to be a lot of content coming your way. And like Lord knows they've spent a buttload of money on getting some of these games to Game Pass. But, I mean, outside of that, I don't know. I'm just not seeing it. And that to me is a problem. I think the other thing I want to mention here about the showcase is that as I'm watching this, I feel like this kind of re-emphasizes the point about the management of Xbox's first-party studios. Like a lot of that showcase is relied upon their partners, and whether it be from a second-party capacity or a console-exclusive capacity and bringing something to Game Pass, a lot of that is reliant upon that. And I don't know. I guess we talk about where's that the big hitters, the quality, where's that the signature quality, the PlayStation, where's the match to that? That we know the PlayStation quality is there, but we don't see it reciprocated on the other side, on the Xbox side, and I just can't help shake the fact that Xbox has so many studios and so many games in the pipeline. We talked about a few that we never saw, and it's like we don't even get an update. And I understand the focus of the showcase was to talk about games in the next 12 months, and I think that's I think that's really, really good. That's awesome. However, you gave us very little concrete dates. So I'm not confident that you're hitting these. So I don't know. I get the sense that this is a true statement, that they can't manage their studios and they can't consistently bring quality exclusives to the platform. So I feel like this showcase kind of reemphasized that, through some of the games that they showed off, through the heavy, third-party push of games that they're bringing to Game Pass, as well as the lack of concrete release dates. The last thing I wanted to touch on, and I know we've been going on for, this is the longest podcast episode we'll have done by the time I get done rambling here. But there was another thing that popped up, an interesting article I saw on Push Square, as it relates to Xbox having an embargo with publishers and devs for 48 hours that embargoes when they can say those games are going multi-platform. So the article specifically talked about Persona 4, and Persona 3. And let's see. So the start of the article goes like this, and I quote, "Some of the games announced during Microsoft's big Xbox showcase on Sunday are coming to the PS5 and PS4, but it would appear you weren't supposed to know for at least 48 hours. It seems that the Redmond firm enforced embargoes on some of its partners, including Atlas and Koei Tecmo. We received press releases from both publishers embargoed until 6 p.m. today," which I think is sometime 6 BST. That's got to be somewhere in Europe, I think. "Preventing us from mentioning the PlayStation ports." And so I doubt this is unprecedented, but it is interesting nonetheless that they're going to have this weird embargo time that devs and publishers can say that their games are actually coming to more platforms than just Xbox. And it also feels a little kind of snaky, a little shady to some degree. I don't know, it just feels kind of slimy. But at the same time, if you think about it from Xbox's standpoint, that's probably a smart move, because they want consumers to think, oh, this is a game. They want to associate that game with Xbox. And for us to walk away and think, oh, that's a game that'll only be on Xbox, so I need to get an Xbox or play it on Xbox, purchase it through Xbox, etc. And I think they kind of bank on the lack of information during that time for folks to realize that. And also maybe for journalists, since they didn't send out the press release, to report out that this is for Xbox and not the other platforms, I should say. So yeah, I thought that was just really interesting. Again, I doubt it's the first time we've seen anything like that from, a big publisher or platform, but it does feel slimy, and I don't really like it. So that'll do it for this lengthy episode of the show. Like I said, I went on for almost 2 hours here. Again, probably just rambled on too much, but a big showcase. I mean, it was 90 minutes long, and I think there's a lot of good stuff here. Like I said, a lot of good stuff. And I'm excited. I think Xbox does have a bright future, albeit starting in 2023. But I think there's some things to look forward to on the Xbox side, as well as on the PlayStation side. Some of those games are coming to PlayStation, and they look fucking dope. So let me know what you guys thought about the Xbox Showcase. Let me know what you think about the show. Let me know if you have any feedback down in the comments below. Remember, the best way to support the show is to drop a rating or leave a comment here on YouTube. I appreciate your love, kindness, and support. Lots of interesting topics. If you have an interesting topic in mind, please feel free to hit me up. Drop it up on Twitter. Or leave a comment on Locals, the Gamecite Chronicles.locals.com. That would be great there as well. Again, hope you had an awesome Father's Day. Had a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Until next time, I'm Bonfire, and I will see you online.